Joining me now is Nile Gardiner, a former foreign policy advisor to the former US President candidate Mitt Romney. We're also joined by the economist and the academic Ashok Kumar. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us here on Sky News this afternoon. And what a fascinating press conference it was with Theresa May and Donald Trump. Lots of talk, as you would expect, about the special relationship and the enduring nature of that. Niall, if I start with you, what does that mean for you?
Well, I think the state visit so far has been very successful. It is a reflection of the strength of the special relationship. In many ways, the US-UK partnership is the beating heart of the free world. It is the alliance, really, that guarantees the security of the free world. And it also represents, I think, the tremendous sense of freedom and liberty on both sides of the Atlantic. And so I think that this week's visit has certainly been a very successful visit in projecting that, and I think that the special relationship is in very good shape, and long may it continue to be so.
Are you as positive, Ashok?
Well, I think that outside of the Washington Beltway and Westminster bubble, most people think that the special relationship is kind of laughable. If you look at the history of it, and usually people point to World War I and World War II, actually that was a relationship based on shared interest, not a special relationship. If that was enough to be a special relationship, we'd have a special relationship with Russia. Since then, what you see is not security and safety happen. You saw basically that special relationship lead to the deposition of a democratically elected leader in 1953 and the imposition of the Shah in Iran. You saw a war in Vietnam that killed 4 million people with the tacit support of Britain. You saw, another assassination of Allende in Chile and the imposition of a dictatorship there. Iraq War, the list goes on. So I think in terms of the special relationship, by all indications, it is one of convenience and one that has actually resulted in insecurity for many parts of the world. And right now, if you look at the trade agreement that's being proposed, the 18-point trade agreement that's being proposed by the U.S. to the U.K., to Britain, they don't give an inch. The U.S. doesn't give an inch. So there's no indication that, I think usually the special relationship's invoked in order to justify stupid and often immoral things.
Well, let's talk about trade, because that was an issue that's come up. It's an issue that everyone in this country is certainly very keen on, with Brexit in the wings. Now, let's get your thoughts on that. Donald Trump saying that everything's on the table. We've already heard from Matt Hancock, the Health Secretary, saying, actually, Mr President, no, the NHS isn't on the table. What do you make of those comments?
Well, let me just firstly respond to the outrageous comments made by your other guest there. The vast majority of Americans support the US-UK special relationship. And most Americans, over 70%, believe that Great Britain is America's closest friend and ally. I think the rant that you've just heard is in no way a reflection of what the American people think. I live in the United States, and I can say that the vast majority of Americans have deep respect for the special relationship, have deep respect for Great Britain and for the British people, and for the joint love of freedom and liberty that both countries share. On the issue of a US-UK free trade agreement, already the talks are very advanced on both sides. This is going to be a tremendous free trade deal that will work to the benefit of both the US and British economies. And I believe that we could have a deal in place, certainly, by 2020, provided Britain is able to finally leave the European Union on October the 31st. And I think it's certainly President Trump's intention to have a very wide-ranging agreement in place that works to the benefit, certainly, of both sides here. And it is in Britain's interest to have a major trade deal with the United States. After all, there's a huge amount of trade and investment between the two countries, and a trade agreement is going to advance economic freedom, liberty, and create jobs on both sides of the Atlantic, and that's a great thing.
OK, Ashok, a deal in place by 2020. Are you as positive as that, or optimistic?
Well, I think it's important to not really speak in vague platitudes. I think it's important to talk about the specifics. So 20% of British exports are ahead to the US. We have a strong trade deal right now with the US. The proposal, the 18-point proposal that we know wants to gut any GMO protection, so basically we'll have plastic chickens in the grocery store, so hurting the public health. They want to privatize the NHS, which has been spoken about quite a bit, and they have made threats to deprive of the British intelligence of any intelligence sharing if they sign this deal, 5G deal with Huawei, which is basically imposing their own will on the sovereignty and the sovereign decisions of the country. So it's kind of weird that Britain continues to say about the special relationship. Your other guest might live in the U.S. I was born and raised in the U.S. and I live in Britain now. And I can tell you that 54% of the public here opposed the visit by Trump. Only 24% supported it. And it's kind of like when two people break up and one of them keeps going around telling everyone that they're still in a relationship. That's where Britain finds themselves right now. They're in a really weak position. And Trump and his aides have come out swinging and said, we want a trade deal. Britain gets nothing out of the trade deal. I'd love to know anything that they would get that they're not already getting. What they get is weaker. Make no mistake about it. This will hurt agricultural producers in the UK. This will hurt the public health of the UK, and this will hurt consumers in the UK.
Niall, I'm sure you've got a response to that.
Yeah, I think that's just it's science fiction that's being presented by your guest there, and I don't think your guest has any real understanding whatsoever of the negotiations that have taken place between London and Washington already on this free trade agreement. Very detailed discussions already, and clearly I think both the US and British government see a free trade agreement as a force generator for prosperity, for jobs, for economic freedom. And this idea that there are health risks posed to the British people as a result of a free trade agreement is simply preposterous. There's no health risk whatsoever here. But one thing is certain, you're going to see more and more British people employed by American companies. You're going to see more Americans employed by British companies. You are going to see greater prosperity for both Britain and for America. After all, we're talking about the world's largest and fifth largest economies, two great free market economies, really, working together. And I think a free trade agreement will also draw the United States and the United Kingdom even further closer together politically as well. And it's a clear demonstration, I think, that Britain can thrive and prosper in the Brexit era outside of the European Union, with the world's largest economy, the most important country in the world, the United States, standing shoulder to shoulder with Great Britain and the British people.
We'll leave it there. Thank you very much, gentlemen, Nile Gardiner and Ashok Kumar.
Thank you.
Well, a bit of breaking news hitting us here at the U.S. News.